chances are if you're watching this video, you're probably human. And as humans, we tend to be emotional. We tend to go for what feels right instead of what logic per se. And I'm not talking about religion or some weird and deep crap like that. I'm simply talking about anime shows. For example, a show like Kiss X Sis, a show about a guy and his two sisters getting as close to sex without actually having sex. That a favorited show by some people. And it's not because they simply think that Kiss X Sis is a masterpiece. No, it's because Kiss X Sis feels right to them. Kiss X Sis is a great show to them. That's why they could favorite it in my anime list. I truly get that. I understand the greatness that is Kiss X Sis. I'm sure you know what Your Name is, you know. Critically acclaimed film, one of the most famous anime films of all time. The same studio that made Your Name, Comics Wave Films, made a film about 14 years ago called 5 centimeters per second. This is a film that I truly think is a wonderfully great film. For one, the background is as amazing as Your Name is. Your Name is known for their incredibly detailed and beautiful backgrounds. To be honest with you, 5 centimeters per second is to that level. Although 14 years older, it just looks so good. In fact, the way I figured out this movie was from a Waifu Wednesday video. If you know, you know. The story is about Takaki's process of moving on. See, Takaki is really in love with this girl called Akari. Back in elementary school, they were really tight, but circumstances happened and Akari needed to move away and Takaki needed to move away, and they just grow further apart. But they kept on writing letters to each other, just keeping in contact. And one day, Akari is going to go further away from Takaki. Akari is going to basically go to a place where Takaki can no longer visit her. So the last day before she left, Takaki just decided to buy a train ticket and try to visit Akari. The train ride was just a mess, you know what I'm saying? Snow started like falling and the trains keep on getting delayed to the point where they were meant to meet each other at 6 and ended up meeting at 10. And it was such a beautiful moment where Akari was just waiting there in the station. The snow falling down and Takaki just talking to Akari for like the first time in a year. Of course, they were very happy and they ended up going to a cherry blossom tree, which is just completely dead. But of course, they didn't care. They had each other, you know, they kissed below the tree. Takaki realizes that this is probably the last time he'll ever see Akari. You see, in life, you don't see the same people over and over again. I understand that if you go to school, you probably see the same person for like the next, 4 years, 5 years? But like afterwards, if you go to college, for example, if you go to work, you move out, you don't see the same people again and you just stop taking contacts with them. It just the way life is. And Takaki for part 2 and part 3 seems to just neglect that. Takaki always has this feeling that one day he'll meet Akari again and one day they'll be happy just kissing below the cherry blossom. Of course, that never happened. The show does perfectly to represent two sides of a breakup. One side, Takaki, who just can't seem to get over it and just destroys every single thing around him. In part 2, a girl named Kanae actually has a crush on Takaki. Kanae is such a sweet girl. I mean, to be honest, brown girls is just amazing, are they? And Kanae just decides to want to ask Takaki out. You know, she's been basically being in this weird friend zone bubble and just trying to burst out, right? But Takaki's always seemed to be distant, always seemed to have this aura of introvertness until Akari finally approaches him, which again will never happen. Eventually, Kanae doesn't even ask Takaki out because Takaki just never truly cared for anyone really besides Akari. Takaki just looks very depressed throughout the whole film. Ends up being an alcoholic even by part 3 just because he never has the same feel, the same level of relationship with anyone besides Akari. While Akari, although we only see a brief moment in part 3, we see her end up having a relationship in high school and eventually marrying the guy and living a happy life. The film teaches us a important moral that you should move on. Most relationships can't go back together. When something happens, whether it's an incredible fight between you and your partner, or whether it's just a simple clean breakup, how Takaki and Akari had, sometimes you gotta move on. Sometimes you gotta lose that hope. And I feel like this story is such a rare take on just love in anime. We always seems to see that love is always portrayed as heaven, when the main character asked out the main heroine. That technically is the ending of the anime, That's basically what harem is all about, just figuring out who to ask out. But it's never always like that. The relationship could always just go fall down, and that's completely fine. And you don't need to blame either side. Sometimes just bad events like moving out or just having bad disagreements is completely normal.